Well, hello everyone, and you join us here today to talk about a watch that's rather taken my fancy. Tom, we've spoken about Hamilton watches before, and they've taken your fancy too. Do you remember the Khaki Field 38mm?
Yes, yeah, I like that one. It's quite good value.
If I recall, when you saw that one, your wallet got a little bit itchy. Is it still a contender for a purchase?
Yeah, it's still a steel mechanical splinter in my mind.
Well, stop. Wait. Don't buy it yet, because you could, for 4.5 times more, buy this, the Khaki Aviation Pioneer Mechanical Chrono.
Ah, yeah, I've seen that. I've heard of this. It's funny because we were trying to find cheaper alternatives to all the new releases that have been announced this year, and in an attempt to try and find a bargain substitute for the new Patek Philippe Calatrava, I stumbled upon the Hamilton Aviation Pilot Pioneer.
Yeah.
Which looks very similar to this, but minus the chronograph function.
Yeah, they all seem to be inspired by various different eras of pilot watch that Hamilton has made in the past. It has a lot of heritage there. This might be a slightly different perspective, because where you were saying previously we were looking for cheaper alternatives to other watches, what I've done here is I've isolated a watch that you like that's £400, and I've tried to find you one that's more expensive.
Yeah, right. Fun game.
It is. I do like spending other people's money. Why don't we run through some of the specs of this little fella?
Yeah. So it's a 40mm stainless steel case. So that checks out. That's within reasonable boundaries.
Yep. 2
horizontally aligned subdials. It's got a boxy shaped sapphire crystal. It's got a asymmetrical case with the crown and lug protectors sort of built into one side of the case. The lug width is 22mm. It's got 10 bar of water resistance. The usual Hamilton textured dial and leather strap. Yeah. Very nice vintage aviation styled watch.
At 14 and a bit millimeters thick, you could call it a bit too thick, but I think for this style it's probably fine. And I wonder if some of that measurement is inclusive of the box crystal as well. The movement as well, quite interesting. Hamilton is part of the Swatch Group family, so it uses an ETA movement, but this is a variation of that found in the Intramatic, the H51. Loses the winding rotor weight, still has 60 hours of power reserve, gives you that original hand-wound feel, but you also get the addition of a silicon balance spring, which means less problems with magnetism, which really is appropriate for a pilot's watch, which would have seen a lot of magnetism in a cockpit.
Nice. That's pretty cool. That's a bit of advanced research in your watch there.
It is, yeah. It's the gold leaf to Patek Philippe's solid gold bar. Like I said, inspired by pilots' watches of the eras, this one in particular, the 70s. But never mind all that, history be damned. I just think it is a really, really nice looking watch.
Yeah, really cool. There's like a charm to Hamilton's pilots' watches and their fields watches.
Yeah. What really attracts me to the whole collection of the Khaki Aviation is the fact that they are inspired by watches that just did a very plain and simple job. There's no extra fancy this, that and the other. They're not polished with ceramic bezels. They're just simple. They're really, really closely inspired. They don't deviate too far. They're sensible sizes. They're mechanically good performers. Why wouldn't you want one? The real question is, you were talking about 400 quid for the Khaki Field 38, and I quite like the Khaki Aviation Pilot Pioneer, which is £720. This is £1,800. That's a lot of money. Is it a lot of money you think this watch deserves?
That's a tricky one, because that's pushing it, isn't it? I think maybe £3,000, £4,000 can start to get you into very, very luxury, high-end, sought-after brand territory. Mm-hmm. Obviously, entry-level pieces, but so this sort of falls in this kind of middling ground, really, where I kind of feel like at this top of that price scale, I'd maybe hold out a little bit longer, save for a little bit longer, and maybe get something else. You probably get like, if you like pilots' watches, maybe hold out for a Tag Otavia or something like that, or I don't know. And then you could get a little bit more street cred.
If buying an entry-level Omega is like getting a BMW 3 Series, but you don't tick the box for parking sensors or aircon or massaging seats or whatever.
Sure.
This is a bit like buying the Vauxhall Astra and getting everything. Getting the heated back seats and just spending it for no reason. It's an interesting place. I understand that the chronograph makes it have a high value, and you'll see similarly spec'd watches from, say, Longines at a similar price, and I've had that same problem as you, where you go 1,800 quid for a Longines chronograph, or I could spend $2,500 on a fully in-house Tudor from a sub-brand of Rolex that looks like a much more well-respected and expensive watch. You're right, this sits in that no man's land. You can't just buy it on a whim.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation to be on. But that said, I think it is a really attractive watch. And there's something about field watches and pilot's watches, of all the professional pastimes that watchmakers think that we all partake in, pilots and field watches, I feel like, are the most appealing because they're usually the most readable. And there's not too many bells and whistles, and you could sort of get away with that as a daily wear, that the field watch in particular. It's like, it's not fussy, and you wouldn't look out of place wearing it, to the office as much as you would like a deep sea or something like that,
Yeah, with a deep sea, people are going to be like, "You're expecting rain or something?" Jeez.
Yeah, so I do have a soft spot for pilots' watches, even though I'm scared of heights. Yeah, and this one's a doozy, so it's pretty cool.
They all have vibes of that, like your granddad leaves it to you.
Right, yeah.
And then you spend the rest of your life wondering which side he fought on. You're just like, interesting. I
was born without granddads, though. It's a weird family mystery. My father didn't have granddads, and his father didn't have granddads. So, but I know what you're talking about.
I would say probably for the most part it's relatable, and I hope I didn't offend with your granddad's situation.
No, it's all right.
I would happily have one of these. I've never actually committed to buying one. I think my favourite is probably still the Aviation Pilot Pioneer, the £720 one, but I prefer the looks of this. And I do really like as well, what really appeals to me here is that, let's compare it to something that's a little bit more of its ilk, perhaps say a 60s chronograph that's got an asymmetrical case that's used by government organisations like the Speedmaster.
Right.
A Speedmaster, an entry-level Moonwatch, is £5,500. So when you look at it that way, you're not getting the brand that people are more aware of, you're not getting the watch that people are more aware of, but you're getting something that also draws from a similar period of history and this didn't go to the moon, but it went in the sky. That's near the moon. Yeah,
so it's more chocks away than Houston, we have a problem, but yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, Biggles Central. I think as well that you don't have to oversell something like this. You just, here it is, look at it. It's not a perfume advert with all the weirdness that goes on with one of those. Someone will see it and they'll like it and they'll buy it.
Yeah, this is a rugged watch for aviation enthusiasts. Whether you're writing something down in a dusty old ledger or, you're tucking yourself in and showing off your abs. It's your choice. This is the watch for you.
Oh, Hamilton. Did you have to, really?
I like it.
Maybe I should buy this watch and I too will have abs.
Yeah.
Well, what do you, dear viewer and listener, think of this watch? Do you find it sitting in that same grey area, that no man's land of not expensive enough but not cheap enough either? Or is it something that you think you're going to absolutely have to have? Let us know in the comments below, and let us know if you've seen any other watches like this that you think are better, and we'll have a look. So, until next time, thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.